Se7en is a hard-boiled noir horror film directed by David Fincher starring Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, and Kevin Spacey. The structure of the story is a cat-and-mouse game between the detectives and the killer. What drives the killer is the 7 deadly sins of Catholic biblical lore, committing a murder for each sin: gluttony, greed, sloth, lust, pride, envy, and wrath. While giving the film a deeper historical context, it also lets the film explore the concepts of good and evil. Se7en explores the concept of sin in the modern-day context, and how we should be punished for our transgressions. Before getting super deep into the subtext of the film, it is important to highlight how iconic the aesthetic for this film is. The dirty griminess of everything in the world, from the characters to the sets, and even the color grade and film stock it was shot on, was massively influential, giving filmmakers the tools to show us the dark depths of our world, or the world they were trying to bring us to. Se7en is a prime example of how the world the characters inhabit greatly affects the mood of the story. I would say this acknowledgement of the aesthetic of our setting has gone on to influence not only art, but how products have become emblematic of the aesthetic of our lived experience, and how they influence the mood of our lives. David Fincher is a master of this. Considering he was a commercial director, it makes sense. I think Apple would epitomize the opposite of what Se7en was all about aesthetically. The clean, perfect manufactured experience in setting from products to commercials is a huge reason why their customers are so devoted to their products. David Fincher has adapted this style, this sort of reaction to his own style, and incorporated it into his own repertoire for later films. And sometimes he goes between the two, the grunginess of aesthetic versus the clean sleekness like you'll see in things like The Social Network. While I appreciate the dichotomy between the two, and I think that does add more depth to his storytelling, I'm still a diehard fan of the style and the grime and grit of Se7en. I think it's truly original, and that's what makes it so iconic. Another part of Se7en that has a massive stylistic impact on art and design is the opening credit sequence. The extreme close-ups of John Doe's obsessions with the Nine Inch Nails music is a masterful example of grounding the audience into the grime and dirtiness of the world, while also giving us a non-verbal look into John Doe's obsessions, letting us see how devoted he is to his work. The impactfulness of this title sequence was groundbreaking in filmmaking and in design and motion graphics, and has created a new requirement for films and TV. If a film or TV show doesn't have an impressive title sequence, it's considered a missed opportunity. Most notably, I would say American Horror Story's title sequence practically copies Se7en aesthetic and just adds on a spin of whatever that season's topic would be, a testament to how influential Se7en was. There are also little hints in the title sequence, little notes. You can see the word pregnancy, which obviously comes up later in the film, which is a good sort of subliminal preparing of the audience. After this great opening sequence and the gluttony and greed murder investigations are underway, we are given an introduction to our heroes, Somerset and Mills, who are mirrors of each other. Somerset is the grizzled veteran, while Mills is the almost rookie. While Somerset is being a good detective trying to gather information, Mills is trying to act like he's been there before, saying things you'd expect to hear in a hokey crime drama. Somerset cringes at all these one-liners. At the heart of Mills' eagerness is idealism. He wants to improve the world and transfers himself and his wife to the worst place for crime so he can fight evil. Somerset is a cynic who has seen it all and far too many times, and is trying to retire as soon as possible. These two murders, though, have piqued his interest, his curiosity, and the religious symbolism intrigues him. So Somerset goes to the library to delve into the subject, where we learn that while Mills likes watching Law and Order, Somerset is a fan of the classics and relishes in reading of the Dante's Inferno and the Canterbury Tales. Somerset does this extra research to help Mills. While Mills is eager, he struggles to digest it and needs to read the spark notes. Even though Somerset is hard on Mills, he does care about Mills. He sees a younger version of himself in Mills and wants to be a mentor to him. And this is a symbolism for the elder generation's inability to transfer its wisdom to the younger generation, being unable to help the younger generation avoid the traps they've encountered. Unfortunately, there are lessons that are learned the hard way. Mills is in this line of work and doing this for the rush of the success of catching the murderer, while Somerset cares more about unraveling the puzzle. Once we understand the detectives, we then begin to dive into John Doe and his work. From discovering the sloth victim, we learn that John Doe is far smarter than what we initially thought. He seeds clues for the detectives so that they will discover things in the order he wants them to. While there is a point of forced attrition and the righteousness of punishing the wicked for John Doe, he is also a performance artist trying to make a statement. John Doe's perfect audience is Somerset, someone who can analyze and interpret what John Doe is doing. What Somerset is doing gives John Doe satisfaction as well. As much as it's a performance for Somerset Mills, it's also a game with rules. Rules that Somerset breaks when he uses his connections with the FBI to figure out John Doe's location. This is the beginning of the subtext for Se7en, which is, we are punished for our sins according to our sins. This is blatantly shown through the first few victims. The morbidly obese man has to eat himself to death. The greedy lawyer must present a pound of flesh to balance the scales. Somerset Mills are also punished for their sins. Somerset commits a sin by cheating at the game with John Doe and compromising on his own character because he sees himself as an analyst who can crack the case with the clues he's given. Somerset's punishment for this is he's not able to crack the case and stop John Doe. Somerset is also punished for this sin by changing John Doe's plans. He uses himself and Mills' wife as the final two murders. This kills the little bit of hope Somerset had for this world. Somerset sees himself in Mills, and sees how Mills could do things right by having a child, unlike him who forced his partner to have an abortion. With the death of Mills' wife, Somerset is just left with the dark and grimy world around him. Mills also commits a sin as well. Mills is looking for trouble by moving into this area. Mills wants to be the righteous paladin who brings justice to the world and smiting evil. By putting this obsession in front of himself, his wife, and his family, by taking them to this dangerous area, he puts them in harm's way. Even though Mills executes John Doe, the act isn't righteous. There is no justice, and John Doe gets exactly what he wants. This also leaves Mills broken beyond repair, similarly jaded to the way Somerset is. Somerset realizes that there is no retirement for him. His punishment for his sins, his hell, is a purgatory on the deserted island, picking up diamonds. Somerset will keep working to improve the world. Even though it isn't a fine place, it's still worth fighting for. This film has a level of complexity, profoundness, and style that this genre hardly ever sees. In my opinion, this is David Fincher's best film and gets an A- from me. It has influenced horror noir in a way that you can see in the films that have come after it. The summation of Se7en feels to me like an ethos of medieval Christian karma. The monkey paw curls and punishes you with what you hold most dear. The story seems to be pointing to a Christian atheism, with a Buddhist spiritual practice. A path I do feel like Somerset is on, a path to nirvana and nothingness, to learn to not to desire and hope for things because that will only lead to pain. I think the pain and suffering the characters experience is very emblematic to living in our modern Western world. There's only the karma of our sins. There is no redemption arc to salvation with God because here in the Western world, we killed him. Thanks for listening to my analysis of Se7en. It would mean a lot if you would like the video, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. It goes a long way to helping me make more of these videos. Thank you.